Okay. Michael?
Cuomo campaign released a statement today saying that Michael Caputo lied about your military record. Can you respond to that at all about, clarify that?
Well, that sounds like it's really interesting stuff. I don't know. I didn't read the paper this morning. I know there was an inquiry about when I left and what my orders were, and we answered it, and I'm not quite sure what the significance is.
What was your military service in Fort Bliss? Let's talk about that.
Well, after 40 years, my orders were for 6 months, and while we were there, they reduced it to 3 months, and that we found out. I went and looked it up because earlier on, when they had asked the question, I didn't remember it all, but I did remember that. Yes.
So it was 3 months in Fort Bliss training people? Okay.
Yeah. Not training people. No, we were being trained. We were in advanced school for air defense artillery.
Why did your campaign say that you were there for 6 months and that you were?
Because the orders were 6 months, but the Army was riffing at the time. They were cutting back in the number of officers. The war was winding down, so they allowed those officers that were going to go, reserve officers, going into the reserves. I then served another 10 years in the reserves.
And is it in fact true that you did not command trooper at?
No, we trained at Fort Dix every summer. We had a class of about 250 basic trainees that we trained. That was the training that took place at Fort Dix. I commanded probably about 100 people. I was the commander of my class at Fort Bliss because I had data rank. I was a first lieutenant when I went on active duty.
Hey, you press people care about the issues?
Yeah, can you tell us why you're here today, Carl?
We're here to talk about jobs. We're here to talk about how we're going to create new jobs. The fact that I've been in business for 37 years. I've created thousands of jobs in the state of New York. When you want to create jobs, you look at why did the jobs leave? They left because we have debilitating taxes. They left because we have a bureaucracy that seeks to intrude in every possible area. They promulgate rules and regulations that are abusive to our manufacturers, our creative industries, and our farms. And that kind of nonsense has to stop because the only reason for most of these rules and regulations is a self-sustaining, self-growing government. We will not cap taxes as Andrew Cuomo has suggested. Andrew wants to cap the rate of growth of spending and cap the rate of growth of taxes. What we're about is cutting spending, cutting taxes. 20% of spending cuts in our first year, 10% spending cuts are tax cuts in our first year, and every year thereafter continuing to cut. On taxes, we're going to cut the personal income tax in all brackets by 10%. We're going to cut the New York State Corporation franchise tax. Over the period of 2 years, we're phasing it out totally. We're going to terminate the New York State, that's the New York State Corporation franchise tax on manufacturing, creative industries, and farms. We're going to terminate immediately the New York State Corporation franchise minimum tax, which is on all businesses. Those 3 tax reductions will give our businesses an opportunity to compete, an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to expand their facilities, and an opportunity by bringing cash to their bottom line to go out and finance the growth of their companies. That's what life is about and is going to be about in New York State in the future. We're going to be focused on jobs. We're not going to be focused on what you've witnessed here in the last few years coming out of our legislature. Raising taxes, charges, and fees because you don't want to go and streamline your government. You don't want to get rid of political efforts that are ongoing in our government. I will cut entire agencies in order to accomplish the goals. We don't need a Division of Housing and Community Renewal. We don't need an Adirondack Parks Agency. We don't need a Lower Manhattan Development Corporation. We don't need agencies, all right, that are there for no other reason other than politics, and we will get rid of them.
How about that MTA payroll tax?
And the MTA payroll tax will end in that first budget. We're going to call for the termination of that payroll tax. And we're gonna fire this tax commissioner of the state of New York, who has so relentlessly gone out and abused our businesses throughout the state, trying to solve his budget crisis on the backs of our small businesses. That will cease. As I understand it, Mr. Kaminsky, who was the real devil out of the tax department, resigned last week and went off and retired or whatever he did. But that's just the beginning. We're going to get them in order, and we're going to have them. They're not going to assess businesses until they have a prima facie case, and when they do, then they will do it legally under the laws of the state of New York.
You said just a couple of weeks ago you're only going to cut the corporate franchise tax for manufacturers. Are you saying you're going to cut it for everybody now?
No, I said for manufacturers, and I further defined it as creative industries and farms.
Are you going to? How come you haven't released any detailed policy books like your opponent has, with all of your positions laid out?
Have you read his? It says nothing. Nothing. It's 114 pages of wide margins, redundant writings, okay, that in the end say absolutely nothing. Does it tell you about Obamacare? Does it tell you that Obamacare is going to add 1.5 billion people to our Medicaid and going to cost our taxpayers a fortune? Did they tell you anything about it? Of course not. He wrote it for himself. Just publishing a book doesn't mean anything. I'm telling you, and we've put out position statements on virtually every issue. And those position statements you can find on PaladinoForThePeople.com. And in there you can read up on just about everything of interest. I have taken a solid position on every issue that I'm aware of. And those issues are published. Andrew Cuomo is dodging. Don't tell me he's a better man than me, Michael, because he's not.
One more question.
Let me ask you, Mr. Paladino, this weekend, your hometown is...
Wait. You asked a question. Who else? Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Why did you stretch the 20% spending cut to 2 years from 1 year?
Well, no. What I'm saying is we will cut spending next year by 20%, all right? But the actual implementation of those spending cuts, like getting rid of an agency, that takes a little bit of time. So the overall effect, the rate of spending will go down, all right, over probably a 1.5 or 2 year period. Somebody brought that to my attention. They said, you have to watch how you're wording these things because it takes time to actually cut down agencies. You have to move functions. You got to study where the functions are going to be replaced. For instance, in DCHR, there is a good function of the distribution of vouchers under federal programs, and we will continue that. But it's the wasted money going out to selected political developers, charging the government 250% of what the private sector can build affordable housing for. That's what's wrong. So we're going to tell the private sector, you build them, and we'll give you the vouchers to help justify to the bank, all right, that you're going to have an income coming in on the properties, and that's what they'll need. And other than that, you let the private sector do it at cost, all right, and they'll make the investments.
Do you still think you can cut the budget by 20% in 1 year, or are you saying it's a multi-year?
No, we will say, all right, this is what we're cutting. Its value, and in the future, when you implement all the cuts, is going to be 20%. But it doesn't all just happen tomorrow morning. You just don't shut down these things in that short period of time.
Thank you.
How do you pay for that 10% tax cut then?
Thanks,
Your
guys.
hometown newspaper endorsed your opponent. What do you think about this? And how
Thank you.
does it work?
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks, Carl.
Woo!